the first time I heard my wife say, "I can drop him any time I feel like it. He is just a wallet I have not emptied yet." It cut through the quiet like a fresh blade. The laugh that followed was just as mean. It did not come from an alley or a stranger. It came from my own living room. I was a few steps away, midway between the hallway and the dining room, reaching for the phone charger I had left on the buffet. That is when the voices traveled down the hall. My wife, Jessica, the one everyone called polished and gracious, was holding court. She had a glass of red wine in her hand. Her three closest friends, Emily, Lauren, and Madison, were stretched across the sectional. The city glowed below our penthouse windows. Their laughter filled the room and ran down the corridor. "Come on," Jessica said, steady and sure, like she never needed anyone's go-ahead. "Men like Jake think they are the boss, but that is the trick. He has a use. He pays for the trips, the handbags, and the rent. I am just taking my time." They howled. Emily leaned forward. "So you are not in love with him at all?" Jessica tipped her head back, chin high, like a queen on a throne. "Love does not pay for plane tickets. Love does not swipe a card for a new purse. He thinks I am his queen. I am waiting for the right moment. When I am done, he will not know what hit him." Each line landed like a small hammer. We had been married for 8 years. Our vows, our late-night talks, the home we had built together. A handful of careless sentences shook the whole thing loose. I did not burst in. I did not cause a scene. I did not call her out in front of her friends. I did what the quiet part of me always does. I stepped back, walked to our bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall until it stopped swimming and came into focus. I am a planner by trade. I work in real estate strategy. Rushing is how you lose your shirt. You wait. You watch. You move only when the ground will hold your weight. Sitting on that bed, I felt a plan start to draw itself, simple as lines on graph paper. This would not be a shouting match. This would not be a broken lamp and a night on the couch. This would be something colder. I played my part for the rest of the night. When Jessica finally came to bed, I kissed her forehead. She smiled like nothing in the world had moved an inch. Behind my eyes, a storm gathered and did not break. This was no longer a marriage. This was a campaign. I did not sleep. I stared into the dark and let her words loop until they dulled. He is just a wallet I have not emptied yet. 8 years. 8 years of building and sacrificing and planning for a future I thought we shared. I realized I had been living while she had been acting. The old version of me would have moved fast. The man I am now knows the price of fast. I have watched reckless anger kill good deals and good people. I have learned to count to 10 and then keep counting. This was not only about a bruised heart. This was about balance. This was about justice. Morning came in soft gray around the edges of the shades, with the smell of fresh coffee drifting down the hall. Jessica sat at the counter in a silk robe, scrolling her phone with one hand and lifting an almond milk latte with the other. From across the room, she looked like a magazine cover, shiny and effortless. To me, she looked like a clock that suddenly ticked too loud. "I have been thinking," I said, calm and flat, like I was talking about the weather. "Maybe we should expand. Maybe we buy another place. Maybe we invest more while the market is soft." Her eyes lit up like someone plugged in the holiday lights. She leaned in, elbows on the counter, the robe slipping just enough to sell the moment. Money is the language she understands best. I kept my face easy. Inside, I was sketching the earliest lines of a blueprint. Step 1 would not be fury. Step 1 would be information. Step 2 would be structure. Step 3 would be consequences that landed where they should. If you are listening and wondering what you would do, ask yourself a straight question. If you learned the person in your bed was planning a slow, quiet robbery of your life, would you scream? Would you stay? Or would you build something that could not be ignored? I chose the last one. I chose patience. I chose proof. I rinsed my cup and set it in the rack. The city hummed beyond the glass. Jessica smiled because I had dangled the word invest. I smiled because I had finally stopped guessing and started building. The day had just begun, and so had I. "Really? Where?" she asked, eyes bright. "Downtown," I said with a steady smile. "Something refined. I will handle the details. You relax." Jessica grinned. I could almost hear the math running in her head. What new purse? What new trip? What new photo to post? She believed I was enlarging our life for her. I was building a stage. Step 1 of my plan was quiet. Observation. For the next several weeks, I let the days look normal. I kissed her forehead in the morning, headed to meetings, sent flowers to her office, and booked 2 careful dinner dates that would photograph well. She moved through it with the stride of someone who believed she had already won. The extra attention only fed her pride. She saw it as blind love. Behind the smile, I tugged on quiet strings. I started with our money. I reviewed every shared account and changed the shape of it. I shifted my direct deposit so my paycheck went into a bank account with only my name on it. I moved non-essential investments out of easy reach and set long holds wherever I could. I called our property manager and walked him through updates to the lease paperwork and the service contracts. On paper, Jessica still sat beside me on everything. In practice, her grip loosened 1 quiet inch at a time. Then I turned to her circle. Her friends treated our living room like a safe stage. They laughed in my home and treated me like I was soft background noise. They underestimated me. At dinners, I asked gentle questions and then kept my mouth shut. I watched the little looks and the inside jokes. Madison always wanted details about my projects. How much down, how much out. Emily lived like a celebrity and never seemed to have rent on time. Lauren had a way of changing the subject when the bill showed up. They were not only her allies. They were fault lines. One night, while Jessica bragged about a shopping run, I tried a light nudge. "You know," I said with a smile, "I would trust you with everything I own." She twirled her glass and gave me that polished smile she saved for photographs. "You should. You have a good woman." I nodded and kept my face friendly. Inside, I felt the hook set. She had sold herself on her own performance. She did not feel the floor shifting. Fate added its piece. Late on a Thursday, I sat on the study floor with a stack of mail and a yellow legal pad. Tucked between the boring statements was a credit card bill I did not recognize, addressed to Jessica at our home. The charges were not small. Designer boutiques, day spas, 2-night hotel stays. One hotel name hit me hard. The date matched a night she swore she was at a girls' dinner. I held the paper until the edges curled. The problem was not the dollars. It was the lie inside each line item. It was the thing behind the thing. That was when I made my choice. This would not be a quick hit to the wallet and a slammed door. This would be complete. I would take apart the little palace she built, piece by polished piece, until there was no crown left to wear. Jessica moved through the world like nothing could touch her. Her friends cheered her for playing the game, and she wore that praise like perfume. She did not understand that every move leaves a mark. She did not know that the man she called boring kept score. The first visible crack showed up at a family gathering. My younger sister, I will call her Sarah here, has never been charmed by Jessica. Sarah is sharp, direct, and protective of me in a way that makes people sit up. That Sunday, my loft filled with cousins and the smell of roasted chicken. Football hummed in the background. I watched Jessica glide from guest to guest the way a host does when she wants the camera on her. Compliments about my recent deals, my habit of helping neighbors, and the scholarships I fund flowed my way. Jessica intercepted almost every one. "I told him to make that move," she said with a smirk. "Honestly, he would not be where he is without me." Sarah raised one eyebrow. She did not bite. Across the room I caught her eye and gave a small nod. She read it. For once, she did not press. She could tell I was holding something heavy. Later, when the door closed on the last goodbye, Jessica slipped to the bedroom and reached for her phone like it was oxygen. I stood just inside the doorway. Her smile bloomed at whatever lit up her screen. It was not a smile for me. "Good night, babe," I said in a soft voice. She jolted, then covered it with a long yawn. "Good night," she said, too casual. I saw through it. I always have. The second crack came with money. 2 days later, she rushed into the kitchen in a silk blouse with trouble on her face. She waved her phone like a flag. "Jake, the joint card declined at Atelier," she said. "Their system must be broken. I need you to call." I dried my hands on a towel and kept my tone even. "That is odd. We will take a look." She paced like a caged cat, tapping the counter with polished nails. I had a few holds hit at once. A spa, a boutique, a deposit for an event. It is embarrassing. They know me there. "I hear you," I said. "Let us sit down tonight and review the statements." She softened at the word we. She always did. She liked the idea of shared things, as long as she could steer them. That afternoon, I checked the accounts from my office and confirmed what I already suspected. Her shadow card had fees piling up. The hotel charges sat there like a dare. The boutique she mentioned showed 2 recent returns and 3 larger purchases. The pattern looked like a person trying to keep plates spinning with someone else's plates. I printed what I needed and slid the pages into a folder. The folder joined a growing stack in my desk drawer: revised contracts, new account confirmations, and a list of dates that did not match the stories I had been told. The outline of the plan was clear now. Money would be one front. Reputation would be another. And then, when the moment was right, the ground would drop all at once. That evening, I cooked. The kitchen smelled like garlic and lemon, and music drifted low from the speaker. Jessica returned to her champagne voice, bright and warm. She told me how exhausting her day had been and how unfair it was that stores sometimes glitched. She called herself practical even as she set a new pair of heels on the chair. "We will look after dinner," I said. "No rush." She settled into her chair and ate, sure that a smile would make the storm slide by. I cleared my plate and kept my own smile steady. Patience, proof, then pressure. When she went to run a bath, I stood at the sink with both palms flat on the counter and let the water drum into the steel. I was not angry. I was ready. You do not need rage when you have a plan you trust. The first pieces were already in motion. The clock, at last, was mine. "Jake, did you move money out of our joint account? The balance looks low." I looked up from my coffee and let a small crease touch my forehead. The same look you give a bill that does not add up. That is odd. Maybe the bank made a mistake. I will call them. Jessica studied my face like it was a spreadsheet. She wanted guilt to blink in my eyes. I gave her nothing. She nodded once, lips pressed to the rim of her mug. Her fingers tightened on the handle, and that told the real story. She did not believe me. She wanted to, but she did not. Behind the curtain, I had already moved thousands into accounts she did not know existed. I had built clean lanes for my income and rerouted every automatic deposit. Transfers to investments now took the long road, with my signature stamped at every stop. On the surface, our money looked calm. In truth, the pool she planned to dive into was draining one quiet inch at a time. The next crack came from her favorite weakness, pride. On a Friday, she announced a night out with Emily and Madison. She dressed like a red carpet was waiting. Red heels, the diamond earrings I bought for our anniversary, and a dress that was more suggestion than fabric. I did not stop her. I stepped in close and held out a light jacket. "Have fun," I said, warm and easy. "Send me a message if you need anything." She smirked. "Do not wait up." I did not. I followed. From a distance, I watched the three of them sweep through a downtown hotel lobby, their laughter bouncing off marble and glass. They slipped into an elevator with a man in a navy suit who pretended he did not know them. My jaw set. I did not need to see more. I had heard enough lies to understand the shape of the truth. In the quiet of my car, I let the engine idle and listened to it hum. That is when the plan changed gears. I had proof. I had motive. More important, I had patience. If Jessica thought she could play me, she was about to learn what it felt like to be outplayed. She breezed into the kitchen the next morning in sunglasses, the kind people wear to cut through last night. She kissed my cheek and sang the same line. Late night. Girls' dinner ran long. I slid a plate of pancakes toward her. "I trust you." She smirked at the words, missing the edge inside them. Trust was not what I had left. What I had now was structure. Strategy. A schedule. Timing is everything. You do not swing a hammer the second you notice a crack. You let pressure build. You let the person who thinks she is in charge climb a little higher, so when the floor goes, it goes fast. So I started with the head, not the wallet. Stage 1 was psychological. Freedom. "Babe, you should go out more," I said one evening, tossing her the spare key to the new car. "Have fun. Enjoy yourself. I have late meetings anyway." Her eyes lit like a theater marquee. Freedom with no questions. It was exactly what she wanted. She hugged me, tight and grateful, never guessing the embrace was part of the trap. The more space she felt, the more careless she would be. The pattern formed fast. Jessica started coming home late, then later, then not at all. The excuses stayed thin. A sick friend, a last-minute tasting, a work mixer that somehow needed an overnight bag. I never pushed. I smiled and said the same 3 words. "I trust you." Those words blew out the light in her watchtower. While she lived her best life, I documented mine. Hotel receipts, late-night withdrawals, rideshare charges that did not match the stories, screenshots of messages that flashed on her phone when she left it face up on the counter and walked away. I was not snooping for sport. I was building a record that could walk into a courtroom and stand there without me holding its hand. Stage 2 was social. Power wears a face, but it lives in a crowd. Emily, Lauren, and Madison were not just friends. They were her mirrors and her cheer team. Take away the court, and the queen feels small. At Emily's birthday, I arrived alone and said Jessica was resting. I shook hands, bought around, and let people talk. I laughed in the right places and asked soft follow-up questions. I never said she was unfaithful. I laid down something vaguer and stickier. She has been under a lot of pressure lately. I told a couple we both knew. She has been away a lot. I hope she is all right. That was all it took. The line drifted through the room the way smoke finds the ceiling. Within a few weeks, I heard the echoes. People asked if Jessica was okay. People noticed how often she left early. People wondered why I showed up with a steady smile and she arrived with a story. Praise shifted to concern, and concern soured into doubt. Stage 3 was emotional. On a Tuesday, I came home with flowers and cooked. Garlic warmed the kitchen. Lemon and butter hissed in the pan. I set the table, wiped it down to a shine, and lit a single candle. Jessica walked in and blinked like she had stepped onto the wrong set. "What is the occasion?" she asked. "No occasion," I said, meeting her eyes. "I love you. That is all." Her smile slipped, then came back thinner than before. "That is sweet." She ate, but her shoulders carried a question. "Why now? Why this? What changed?" She did not realize my kindness was not a truce. It was a mirror. I wanted her to sit in soft light and feel the weight of every lie she had stacked. I wanted guilt to whisper while I stayed quiet. The cracks widened. Her friends began to cancel one by one. Drinks turned into another time. Group messages slowed to a crawl. The joint account she leaned on began to wobble. When she checked it, the numbers did not behave the way they used to. Transfers moved slower. Limits appeared where there had been none. Supports she thought were permanent looked like stage props. Through all of it, Jessica kept her posture. She still believed she held the upper hand. She still treated the world like a stage and me like a piece of scenery. I rinsed the dishes and set them in the rack. The water beat a steady rhythm in the sink. Steam fogged the window, then cleared. I dried my hands and watched her drift to the living room with her phone already in her fingers, thumbs flying, a small smile tugging at her mouth. Let her text. Let her plan. Let her believe she is winning. I was almost done measuring. The saw was sharp. The chalk line was straight. When the cut came, it would be clean. She believed I was clueless. She believed she could not be touched. That held until the night I set up the first reveal. I kept it small on purpose. A test, not a scene. Jessica was getting ready for another girl's dinner. Perfume. Heels. The careful, practiced smile. As she reached for her clutch, I handed her a folded envelope. "In case you need it," I said, steady and calm. She opened it and froze. Inside was a hotel receipt. Same hotel as 3 nights earlier. Same floor. Same room. Paid with a card she thought would never cross my desk. "What is this?" she asked, trying for a light laugh that fell flat. I stepped closer. My voice stayed even. "A reminder, Jessica. Every secret leaves a trail." I kissed her cheek and walked away. She did not go to dinner. She sat on the edge of the sofa with the receipt in both hands and stared through the paper like she could make it fade. For the first time, I saw real fear on her face. She understood something important. I knew, and I was not angry. I was patient. That made me dangerous. The envelope did its job. Her rhythm changed. She moved through the house like the lights had dimmed. When I came down the hall, she checked over her shoulder. She paused before answering simple questions. Calls with her friends got shorter. She still dressed up and still left, but the old strut had a wobble. Confidence had a seam. I waited for the right morning and made the next cut. On a bright Monday, I called the bank. I was polite. I was precise. I asked for holds on every joint account. I suspended the lines of credit. I set new authorizations on savings. I locked the emergency fund she used to brag that she managed. On paper, it could read like a technical glitch. In truth, it was a controlled strike. By Thursday, she stormed into my home office, heels ticking like a metronome. "Jake, what is going on? My card was declined at Saks Fifth Avenue. Do you know how embarrassing that was?" I looked up from the laptop and let my face show mild surprise. "That is unusual. Banks have been glitchy lately. I will handle it." She narrowed her eyes and studied me like a suspect. I gave her the same steady calm. The walls around my expressions were plain and thick. I offered a small smile and went back to typing. She left in a rush. I knew what follows anger. Panic. For someone who lives on image, nothing burns like financial humiliation. The next strike was not money. It was social. Here is a simple truth I learned. Jessica's power lived in people. In her audience. In her orbit. In the reflection she saw in their eyes. Take away the applause, and the star has to hear her own breathing. At a Sunday brunch my sister hosted, I played the part one needed to play. I arrived hand in hand with Jessica, a picture of a husband proud to be there. The room held warm plates, clinking glasses, and easy laughter. Halfway through, I leaned in, loud enough for the table. I honestly do not know how I would manage without Jessica, I said. Even when life gets heavy, I trust her with everything. The room went quiet for a beat. Heads turned. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. On the surface, my words were praise. Anyone listening for weight could hear the floor beneath them. After the plates were cleared, Sarah pulled Jessica aside. Is everything okay between you two? My sister asked, voice steady. Of course, Jessica said with a scoff. Why would you ask that? Sarah's eyes saw what the voice tried to hide. She did not push. She did not need to. The seed was in the soil. Rumors do not need volume. They need direction. Within days, the whispers began. Soft. Curious. Not cruel. Is Jessica all right? She seems away a lot. We keep missing her. Then the tide shifted. Invitations slowed. Calls rolled to voicemail. Replies lagged. Even Madison, her most loyal companion, began to stand a step farther away. Jessica felt the air change. One evening, she turned on me in the kitchen. Did you say something to them? Why are my friends acting different? I met her stare with a softness that did not match what she wanted to find. People drift sometimes, I said. Maybe they are busy. Do not worry. You will always have me. Those words rang like a small bell in a quiet church. She heard the echo. She caught the second edge. It did not sound like a promise. It sounded like a clock. The break came on a plain weekday afternoon. She walked in with shopping bags that wanted to look expensive and did not. The handles bent the wrong way. The logos tried hard to look real and failed. She stepped into the foyer and stopped cold. Two movers carried labeled boxes through the living room. Paper rustled. Tape hissed along cardboard seams. Jake, what is this? Who are these people? I signed the clipboard, thanked the crew, and turned to her. Nothing heavy, I said. Just shifting assets. Moving some items out of the joint property into my private holdings. A little caution never hurts. Her breath caught. For the first time, fear showed without a mask. Are you leaving me? I tilted my head and studied her the way I study a chessboard when the queen is one move from the corner. Jessica, I said, slow and plain. I would never leave you unless you gave me a reason. I did not explain anything else. I walked past her and left her standing in the doorway, shaking, framed by half-packed boxes and a mirror that showed her standing alone. She did not sleep that night. I heard the mattress shift. I saw the phone light up and go dark, over and over. For years she believed she held the strings. Now she knew I had them, and I was pulling with care. Jessica trusted appearance like it was armor. If the dress was right and the hair was smooth, she believed the cracks would stay hidden. I had learned her favorite weapon. I was ready to turn it on her. The chance arrived fast. One of my business partners hosted a dinner. The room was polished on purpose. White linens, glass that caught candlelight, a jazz trio low in the corner, servers moving like they were part of the song. I wore a navy suit and a plain tie. Jessica came in wearing an emerald gown that grabbed the light and threw it back. Glittering heels, hair set just so. The kind of look that turns heads and invites the wrong stories. I greeted colleagues and clients with easy smiles. I introduced Jessica with warmth and credit. I said she sharpened my work by asking hard questions. I said she made me better. People nodded. People believed it. She soaked in the attention, sure the stage belonged to her again. I let it breathe. Then I set the next line. When the band slid into a softer tune and the talk eased, I lifted a simple toast. I kept it short. I spoke about integrity and partnership, and how growth without character turns into rot. I thanked my team for steady hands. Then I turned to Jessica with the whole room watching. I am grateful for a partner who understands that trust is built by what we do when nobody is looking, I said. In business and at home. Glasses touched. Smiles flickered. The sentence could pass as a compliment. It could also sit there as a warning written in daylight. I did not say which one I meant. Jessica felt it. Her shoulders pulled in a half-inch. Later, while she chatted with a couple near the bar, I thanked the host and handed a small envelope to the event photographer. "Please send copies of any shots with us in the frame," I said, "for a family album." He nodded. Of course. Proof does not always arrive like a smoking gun. Sometimes it is a date, a dress, a room full of witnesses, and a line that stitches an evening together. On the ride home, Jessica stared out the window and pressed her lips until they went pale. She knew something had shifted and could not name it. My calm scared her more than anger would have. I hung my jacket on the hook by the door and turned off the foyer light. The stage was set. The crowd had thinned. The money was locked down. The clock kept steady time. Soon, I would show my cards. Not one by one. All at once. She dazzled the room the way she always does. She touched every shoulder. She laughed at every light joke. Her smile carried that clean, polished shine cameras love. Halfway through the night, I stood and raised my glass. To loyalty, I said. In business. In friendship. And most of all, in marriage. Without loyalty, everything else falls apart. Polite applause rose like a small wave and rolled back. Then I felt the eyes move. They drifted to Jessica. She kept her smile, but the corners tightened. Her fingers bit into the stem of her glass. She knew the toast carried two meanings. It was not about profit and loss. It was about us. After the toast, I moved through the room. I shook hands. I thanked teammates. I kept my tone easy while I placed small lines in the right ears. To a colleague by the bar, marriage is not about luxury. It is about trust. Funny how trust is the hardest thing to keep. To an old family friend near the coat room, you never really know a person until you see what they do when they believe nobody is watching. No names. No accusations. Just plain truth that follows a person home. By the time the band slid into a slow number, whispers drifted in the wake of Jessica's heels. She felt it. She knew it. Masks get heavy when the straps start to slip. The next move would not be a whisper. It would be a fact. I asked my sister Sarah to swing by for coffee one afternoon. We sat at the kitchen table where the light falls soft. I slid a folder between us and opened it. Inside were printed receipts, hotel reservations, statements from the hidden credit card, and screenshots of messages Jessica had left open on a tablet like a dare. Sarah's eyes widened as she flipped through the pages. "You have known this whole time." I nodded. "And I am not done. I do not want to just expose her. I want her to feel exactly what she built." Sarah leaned back, jaw tight. "She has mocked you behind your back for years. She will earn what is coming." We talked through the order of operations. Which thread to pull first? Which crowd mattered? What would land without me raising my voice? We sketched the plan to take apart an image from the inside out. The unraveling started that weekend. Jessica set a brunch with the last few friends, still pretending nothing was wrong. Pearls. Best smile. Bright voice. She worked the table like a pro, steering talk towards safe ground. Travel, recipes, new shoes. I arrived late on purpose. I kissed Jessica on the cheek and greeted everyone like a doting husband. Then I reached into my jacket, pulled a folded hotel receipt, and set it beside my water glass. "I am sorry I am late," I said, smooth and calm. "I had to clear up a small mix-up with the bank. Turns out my wife has been handling a few expenses I did not know about. But marriage is about trust, correct?" The table did not breathe. Color drained from Jessica's face like a low tide. She forced a laugh that never made it past her throat. "That is a mistake. I can explain." She did not get the chance. Eyes met around the table. A couple of hands drifted for phones. Nobody said the word affair. Nobody had to. I leaned back and let the quiet do the work. It did. That night she came at me, shaking with anger. "Why would you humiliate me in front of my friends?" I kept my voice level. "I did not humiliate you, Jessica. I showed them a small piece of the truth. The rest is the work you have been doing on your own." She opened her mouth and found nothing there. No comeback. No charm to hide behind. In that empty space, fear finally took a chair. She understood I was not only exposing her. I was taking the structure apart, one beam at a time. And I was nowhere near finished. That silence at brunch was only a sample. A person who worships applause has to lose it in public to understand the loss. If you build a life around clapping, the end begins when the room goes quiet. I did not have to wait long. My company hosted a charity gala, the kind with chandeliers, cameras, and money that wears cufflinks. Jessica loves galas. They are her stage. She spent hours stepping in and out of gowns, practicing smiles, even rehearsing a neat line about our perfect marriage in case anyone asked. I brought a different script. The ballroom glowed. Champagne slid into tall glasses. A dozen phones flashed as Jessica held my arm like she had never let it go. We made the rounds. She blessed jokes with the right laugh. We posed for pictures, the two of us a clean image, successful man, elegant wife. Halfway through the night, I took the stage. I thanked donors. I praised my team. I spoke about the project we built to help families who need a bridge. Then I let my smile settle and change the air. There is something I have learned about loyalty. I said, steady. It is not only for business. It is about who stands beside you when nobody is watching. Sometimes the people we trust most are wearing masks. A small ripple moved through the room. Jessica's smile froze. Her knuckles went white around the glass. I could have stopped there, but I wanted the thought to land. I will not go into details tonight, I added. But I will say this. Betrayal does not break a strong man. It sharpens him. When the truth steps into the light, freedom follows. The applause was polite, but different. It carried a question. Heads turned toward Jessica as whispers found their old speed. That was the damage. Not my words, but the way the room started to see her. She felt it like heat on the back of her neck. After the speech, I moved through the crowd without strain. Jessica tried to keep her posture. She smiled too hard. Her laugh cracked at the end. Sarah stood nearby, and, when the moment was right, she added one line, just loud enough for two donors to hear. It is always the ones bragging about perfect lives who hide the darkest rooms. The sentence hit like a hammer with the weight of a feather. In one night, the admiration Jessica fed on changed flavor. Compliment turned to curiosity. Curiosity turned to doubt. Back home, the mask came off. "You are destroying me," she yelled, pacing the living room in that emerald gown, heels snapping on the wood. "Do you really think you will walk out of this clean? People will blame you too." I sat in the armchair and let her words pass. I felt calm, the kind that comes after you measure twice and make the cut. There was nothing to argue. There was nothing to fix. The plan was already running. Every move I made had witnesses. Every line I spoke had context. Her anger was what is left after the applause is gone. I watched the city lights stretch a thin reflection across the window. The hall clock ticked another minute. I stood, slipped off my tie, and set it on the table. "Go to bed," I said. "Tomorrow is going to be a long day." She looked at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. The quiet husband she counted out had been gone for a while. I turned off the lamp and walked down the hall. The house did not feel empty. It felt clear. In the morning, I would take the next step. Not with shouting. With proof. With timing. With the kind of truth that stands on its own. "No, Jessica. People will see the truth. Sooner or later they always do. You built this life on lies, and I am only switching off the stage lights so folks can see what I have been looking at all along." She went still. Tears gathered, but she held her breath like that could hold the moment in place. For years, she believed she controlled the marriage, the money, and the woman in the mirror. In a week, it all began to slip. Friends, finances, reputation. I did not raise my voice. I did not argue. I let patience and quiet do the work. That cut deeper than any outburst ever would. By morning, her phone would not stop buzzing. Messages, screenshots, posts that were meant to be whispers and were not whispers anymore. Someone leaked the spending sprees, the hotel stays, the little patterns she thought were invisible. The people who used to clap for her did not rush in to save her. They stepped back. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing, while I walked past with my briefcase. I paused at the door. "We are almost done here, Jessica," I said. "Almost," she answered, but it sounded like a question. I left her with the quiet. You can learn a lot from quiet. Her little empire fell fast. Friends drifted. A gray cloud of talk followed her into every room. The money she counted on did not answer when she knocked. But I knew the final cut was not about cash or gossip. The last break would come from plain truth, put in the right light, with witnesses. 3 weeks after the gala, I invited a small circle to the penthouse. Her closest family, a few mutual friends. Sarah was there. My parents sat together on the sofa with their hands folded. Even Emily came, smaller than usual, eyes down. Jessica told herself it was a truce. She dressed soft, practiced a kind smile, and carried a tidy speech about rebuilding trust. When she stepped into the living room, the temperature changed. The eyes in that room were not warm. They were careful. Some were cold. I stood in the center with a folder. "Jessica," I said, steady. "You told people I was your world. You said we could not be shaken." I let the words hang. "What you did not know is that I have been listening." I opened the folder. Out came dates and receipts. Hotel bookings. Statements from the hidden credit card. Screenshots of messages that never should have been left open on a tablet. Then I set my phone on the table and tapped play. Her voice filled the room, as clear as the night I first heard it. "I can drop him any time. He is here for one reason." Laughter followed on the recording, the same sharp sound from that night with her friends. It bounced off our walls and came back thin. Someone gasped. Emily covered her face with both hands. Sarah folded her arms and did not look away. Jessica stepped back. The color drained from her face and her mouth shook. "Jake, please," she whispered. I did not stop. "For 8 years I gave you trust, love, and loyalty," I said. "You used me. You lied to the people in this room and carried me around like a trophy while you worked behind closed doors to cut me down. That ends tonight." The room went still. Nobody needed to add anything. The weight of the papers, the numbers, and her own voice did the talking. Her parents stared at the carpet. The friends who once praised her had nowhere to stand. I reached into my jacket and brought out one last envelope. I handed it to her. "This is your exit," I said. "The divorce is signed. You will leave with nothing because everything you thought you had is already gone." Her hands shook as she opened it. The truth landed in pieces. No accounts in her name. No properties that belonged to her. No safety net. The very things she schemed for had sifted through her fingers. "You planned this from the start," she said, sinking into the couch as tears lined her face. I held her eyes. My voice stayed even. "No, Jessica. I planned it the night I understood the woman I married was not real." The gathering ended without speeches. People left in a hush, like the quiet after a sermon that hits too close. Jessica stayed where she was, small in a room that used to make her feel big. I walked out with Sarah and my parents. Nobody looked back. Later, I stood on the balcony and watched the city move. I did not feel a rush or triumph. I felt steady peace. I had not needed rage. I did the quiet work. I let time do its job. I gave her the one thing she never wanted, the truth in front of everyone. Betrayal does not just break trust. It eats the person who carries it. Greed can make noise. Arrogance can shine for a season. Lies can run fast. Patience outlasts them. Truth outlasts them. In the end, you cannot cheat love. You can only trade it for something small and hope nobody notices. I did not choose rage. I chose simple, careful steps and a clock that kept steady time. The truth did the cutting. The truth did the finishing.